All right, good. All right, I need to move around, so my apology. I don't do well behind a podium. So if I feel like I walk up in front of you, don't take it personally. I just got to keep moving. So hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for dedicating a day to this. Turn off the other mic. There you go. Thank you. And thank you for your commitment to this as well, right? So whether you're an employee of the city, employee of another agency, a student, a visitor, just somebody who wants to be part of this, it means you believe in this. You believe in usability. You believe in experience. You believe in that the customer and the user needs to be part of the process as we go forward. So I'm just going to tell you a couple of quick stories of why I think this is important. And hopefully it challenges you a little bit to figure out where your own story is in this as you go forward. So 2005, who was born in 2005? Okay, all right. All right. 2005, I was working at USAA. I had been there probably by that time, maybe 8 or 9 years. I wound up doing 20 years at USAA in a variety of different roles. And marketing was responsible for the website in those days, right? And if you think about pre-e-commerce, those of you can think about pre-e-commerce, websites were basically digital brochures, right? You put up a website, you put up your marketing information, and the chief marketing officer was responsible for that. Well, I worked for a CEO at the time, didn't work for him directly at the moment, who basically had a vision that actually people could use the website to transact business. This new thing called e-commerce was coming. Now, for those of us who are older adults at the time, it scared the crap out of us because if you put your credit card on the web, somebody was going to steal it, right? That's what that meant. So we weren't really buying into the whole thing. But he believed that the web could be used to actually transact business. Now, this is before phones. So you would have to sit at your big desktop without a broadband connection, download something, go in and fill out a form and hope it went through and that somebody on the other side would actually get your information. So you usually were nervous about that. You picked up the phone and called anyway as you went through. But he believed in this. Now, he believed in the efficiency of e-commerce. So he basically took away the responsibility for marketing, created a new organization called Digital, and put me in charge of it as the chief digital officer. I have no digital background. I have no marketing background. I have technology and project management background. I don't even know what user experience is. At the time, we didn't even call it that. And so what I did was, if we're going to have a digital organization, we needed to figure out what that meant. I had some very smart people around me who taught me the concept of a wireframe, taught me the concept of what is now called a journey map, taught me the concept of understanding somebody would be in an event and how would you handle them if they were in a certain event. And then we put together a process called a review where we would say, before we ever put out a web page, a bunch of smart people should look at a web page and make sure it meets our standards. Well, along that way, we introduced this thing called an experience. What was the experience we wanted the customer to have when they were on the web? Now at USAA, we had a great baseline to work against. If you called a member service rep on the phone, you were going to get a great experience every single time. Well-trained, knew the military. You would always leave going, wow, that was awesome. I love USAA. And so what the CEO told me was, do that on the web. And I went, how long do I have? A few weeks. And then he made me a direct report to him, and then he decided to actually design it himself. A year and a half of my life trying to figure out how to create the phone experience on the web in a new e-commerce channel while marketing people were throwing darts at me because they didn't believe this was real. What I learned in that experience was the experience. What I changed my title to from Chief Digital Officer was to Chief Experience Officer. Because what we decided was more important than just the technical components of building a web page was making sure that the customer had an incredible experience regardless of the channel they use to interact with you. And suddenly we started saying, we're not trying to make it better than the phone channel. We're trying to make sure if they use the phone channel or the web channel or the mobile channel, or they walk into a branch, the experience is awesome every single time. And wouldn't it be great if they could work across those channels at the same time? So that concept of experience is not digital. It's not technology, and it's not marketing. You start with people, you think about the process, you understand your data, then you move to the technology. How do people feel? So here's a recent experience of an experience. My wife and I are flying home on Southwest Airlines a week ago, from Grand Rapids, Michigan, across Lake Michigan to Chicago, and then Chicago back to San Antonio. Halfway across, literally looking out the window at the lake, the pilot comes on and says, "Well, ladies and gentlemen, you may have noticed that we've turned off the right engine." We had a low oil indicator light come on just a few moments ago, and we've decided to shut the engine down. We are walking through our checklist at this time to make sure we understand what we're doing. And I will assure you that we are still on our flight path and our altitude, and everything is fine, and we're still moving to Chicago without delay, no problems. I'll be back on in a moment. And I turned to my wife and I said, "I have never been on a plane with only one engine. This is never, and all the times I've flown, I've never had a pilot say, we have an engine gone out. Don't planes crash when engines go out?" Well, she turned to me a little nervous and said, the engine didn't fall off. The engine's not on fire. And he turned it off. Obviously, we can fly on one engine. Would you be a little nervous in this situation? Or do you all go, no, I'm cool. One engine's fine. This is why when I have boats, I always have two engines. You can always get home on one if you have to, right? All right, so a couple minutes later, he comes back on and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, just want to give you an update. We are still maintaining our altitude with no problem. We are still maintaining our speed. And I just want to give you a heads up on a couple of things that are going to happen. We are going to get priority landing in Chicago, which means we don't have to loop around. We're going to go right in. And when we land, you're probably going to see a lot of fire trucks and emergency vehicles along the runway with all their lights on. And because I can't reverse my thrust on my engine, I'm going to have to brake really, really hard. So I'm going to ask you to brace when we actually touch down. And I'll get back on with you in just a couple of minutes and I'll tell you how we're doing." Now, the nice thing is we didn't have to loop around Chicago. So we go into Chicago, and I keep looking out the window, going, "Are we actually going down faster? Are we sinking? Are we losing altitude?" Right? I'm thinking all this in my head. Well, I turn to my wife, going, "We're fine. I know we're fine. Oh my God, what's happening? We're gonna," right? So we actually go in straight into Chicago, land the plane, emergency equipment all over the runway, pull off to the side. Oh, he brakes really hard, but I've been on worse landings. We didn't bounce. We braked really hard. I assume we're going to go off some area on the tarmac and everybody's going to come on board and it's going to be emergency vehicles. He takes us right up to the gate, stop short of the gate. All the trucks are there. The lights are on. They check the engine. They pull up. He goes, "Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived early in Chicago." It was the best emergency experience I ever had. Why was it a good experience? Anybody tell me? She said the key word, trust. I didn't know the pilot. He wasn't a friend of mine. I didn't know if he was a good or a bad pilot. I assume he's a good pilot. He's flying the plane. What else? Not only trust, what else? Say it. He kept us informed, right? This is what I know. This is what I'm going to do next. He set expectations with us, right? He could have told us nothing, and we probably wouldn't have known the engine was out. But when we landed with all the emergency vehicles around, everybody would have freaked out, right? What else? Yell it. Very transparent, right? Now, he could have said, "I don't know what the hell to do next." Now, I don't want that. That's going to eliminate erode trust, but he was taking us through it. What else? He was calm. I mean, I'm not joking the way I said it. He literally was calm. Now, anybody been on a Southwest flight where they tell jokes when you're getting your seats? He actually came out and told a joke. And I remember that, and I'm like, "Oh, well, is he telling another joke? He wouldn't joke about this." But he was absolutely calm. Had nothing to do with technology, had nothing to do with digital, it had nothing to do with anything except the person set the experience. The experience I had was incredible. And then to top it off, the next day, my wife and I get an email from Southwest. We understand you had a situation on your flight. Here's $200 credit for each of you. I didn't expect a credit. We landed early. I made it in. We didn't crash, right? We were never in any way in our journey disrupted. I actually had a very good emergency experience. And they still gave us a $200 credit because that shouldn't happen. Guess who I'm flying with the rest of my life? Hopefully that same pilot, right? So my story there, which is recent, and it really came to me think about is, experience is what we do, right? It's what we create for our customers, for our employees, for our people working. We have full control over that. And sometimes it's just a conversation. And sometimes it's just a calm voice. Sometimes it's just about transparency and setting expectations. It doesn't always have to be about the technology or the web page. So we learned at USAA to focus on this thing called life events. So instead of talking about the web page and insurance products and whether they call the phone or not, we would say, what is the event that the customer is in? I'm about to have a baby. There's a lot of things you got to plan for when you're starting a family. And if you're a financial services company, you think about insurance, you think about life insurance, you think about car insurance, you think about all the things that go with your family, right? Having a baby creates an event. What's the experience we want to have when we have a new mother and father come to us and say, I'm having a baby and what do I want to do? We need to think about the same thing in our city. When somebody moves to San Antonio and they've never been here before and they say, oh, I got to start renting. What do I do? I'm going to buy a house. What am I going to do? I'm starting a new job. What do I do? All very positive events, but we also have some not so positive events. I'm about to be evicted. What do I do? I'm on the verge of homelessness. What do I do? Those are all experiences, life event experiences. And what this group can do is create the right experience for those people. And I want you to think unlimited in your ability to create experiences. Don't be constrained by, I'm not a web developer, I don't know how to do that. You can design an experience anytime you want, any way you want. But here's how you design experiences. Here's how you don't design experiences. Hi, I'm Craig, and I'm the CIO. We're going to do it this way because I think that's the way the customer wants it. Now everybody go, nah, we would never do it that way. We do it that way every single day. The people with power, with title, with money, with organization, with structure, decide on the experience for our customers because of what they think is best, but also what meets my organizational needs. You have to think from the outside in, not from the inside out. So what I want you all to do is forget about your title, forget about your skills, forget about your responsibilities. If you're working on an experience for an event for somebody, you need to be in their shoes. You need to think the outside in. One of the easiest ways to do that is have empathy for them and go do it. My daughter, when she was a junior in high school, wanted to talk about homelessness in San Antonio. So we gathered a bunch of information. We talked about the facts, the programs, the things that were out there. And she says, I think I need to be homeless for a day to really understand this. How many here would feel comfortable letting your 16-year-old daughter go be homeless for a day in San Antonio? Now, I was pretty nervous about that. But I said, so let's do this as a group project. Why don't you gather up some friends who want to do this as well? And we'll figure out a way to do it. And she did. She found some of her friends that were interested in this. And we planned out kind of a day in the life of a homeless person. Where would they sleep? Where would they go get breakfast? Where would they go next? Where would they go next? And we built a route for her. And we let that group of girls go do that route for the day. While 3 or 4 very cautious men hiding in the bushes behind them followed them around everywhere they went, right? I mean, I want safety, but I also want experience. And she spent 4 or 5 hours with her friends doing that, including standing in front of the McDonald's down off Alamo and asking people for money so she could go in and buy a hamburger. I'm just absolutely amazed that she did this, but it was a great example because at the end of the day, we sat down as a group with some of the folks that I've worked in homeless shelters before, and we talked about their experience. And their experience was, I will never forget a day in the life. You know, it's not actually a day in their real life, right? Because they didn't sleep under the bridge. They don't have many of the things that homeless people are dealing with, they were not dealing with. But they got as close to it as they could for a day to understand. My ask for you is don't just take user experience as a practitioner's approach. Get committed to the thing you want to change in this world and go learn it. Go be part of it. Go be in those shoes. Get that outside in experience. And then you become a passionate advocate for creating the experience that that group needs. So when an executive like me says, yeah, we're not doing that, you get to say, you have no idea what that customer needs. And I do. So there were 3 things that I have on my note here. I don't want to lose them. There's a book called Customers Included that was written in 2013. And I have a copy of it over there. If anybody wants to take a picture of it, just do there. A friend of mine named Phil Terry, early in the e-commerce days, decided corporations were not listening to their customers. They were not learning this that I was just talking about. And I helped him in this book, but he came up with 3 key points. The first one was you have to observe your customers directly. That's what I'm talking about. You can't assume you know what they are. You can start there. My assumption about my customers is X. I've done research. Why? But then you need to actually go observe them. Get out and do it. The second thing you need to do is discover their unmet needs. Very hard to do, very easy to say. So as I observe them, what are the needs that they actually have that we're not meeting, that nobody's meeting? And then once I understand those unmet needs, I then need to convince my organization that I work for to go do something about it. And that's where this breaks down all the time. Because the organization says, we don't have money for that. That's not my plan. So now you need to be creative in your ability to influence, backed with the power of you have observed and been with this customer and you understand what they need. It's now firsthand. And that is much different than just giving somebody a report or a research. So when my daughter walks in and says, we need to do something about where these people sleep, because I've been there and sat there and talked to them, and it's disgusting. I said, oh, you are absolutely right. Who can I call? Who do I know? What do we want to do to change that? That's what I want you to take into your core about UX as a practice. But it only is driven by your passion to change people's lives. So we can sit back and build web pages all day long. We can do CX reviews all day long. We can set brand standards all day long. We can talk about data all day long. At the end of the day, if it doesn't change somebody's life, it's a waste of time. So be passionate about the change in people's lives. Have empathy for them, be in their shoes, understand them, understand their needs, and then go kick ass to your organization and say, you need to do something about this. How can we fix it? So with that, I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. I hope that you see this as something we have embedded in our DNA now here in the city. And we want everybody to work with us in San Antonio to drive great experiences for our residents in everything we do. I appreciate your time together.